So the meeting of November 18, WSESD will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it's important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If anyone in the public is having difficulty connecting, please let one of us know, and we will do our very best to reconnect you. Nevertheless, this meeting will continue as posted. If anyone objects to anything on the consent agenda, please let us know now so it can be pulled from the consent agenda and set aside for discussion. I think there is only one thing on the consent agenda, and those are minutes. And I'm going to pull something from the consent agenda, I realize, and that is the minutes for November 13, 2025, because we don't have them yet. Okay, so what is valid on the consent agenda is November 4, 2025. So I just obeyed my own rules. Any amendments to the agenda as it currently stands? Okay, no amendments, we are moving on. Before we go to student matters, I just want to make a very upbeat announcement having to do with an event on September 14th, Friday night at the Stone Church. BCTV staff awarded this district, the WSESD, the Government Education Partner Year Award. And so at this event, Mo Hart and I were there. We had been interviewed by BCTV for this event, and Kim Price was there, Jocelyn Fritz was there, Ruby McAdoo was there. Am I leaving anybody out? No, I don't think so. So the award was given to the WSESD in acknowledgement of our work. The award itself, however, says Windham Southeast Supervisory Union. So I'm wondering about the distinction, but that doesn't matter. And I wanted to pass around this lovely plaque, which Mark should then take to let me just give it to Ann for a second and then pass it this way and it'll come around. Mark should, I guess, take it to the central office. We're gonna pass it this way and then it'll go around. And, cause I guess Mo and I can't keep it in our homes.
Okay.
All right, okay, thank you. So it was really a lovely event. And for so many of us, a realization of everything that BCTV does, which is more than just publicize these many meetings. I do want to say that both Mo and I, in our interview, and it wasn't presented, that clip, we both felt the award belonged to BCTV because of their accuracy, transparency, keeping us on track for the work that we do, as well as individuals like Peter Kelleher, for always being in place and always with good humor through long, lively meetings. So thank you. All right, moving on to student matters. Is there an update? I did put you on, both of you on the agenda. I don't know, you can take the time or not
Yes.
on this occasion.
So we would like to update on our engagement project, and we've been meeting throughout the past week with a couple principals from different elementary schools in the district. We've so far met with Guilford and Oak Grove, and we're still working to get the meetings with Academy and Green Street scheduled. In these meetings, we talked a lot about what we're hoping to do in these schools with these projects, how we best think we can do that, and we have worked to finalize our schedule on when we're going to do this, and we're hoping to do that sometime in late February, early March, in that kind of area when we're starting to transition towards getting these elementary or sixth graders into the middle school, mostly at BAMS is what we're focusing on, and we've begun finalizing our discussion questions that we're going to ask and our data questions as well that we're going to try to get actual physical numerical data from.
Yeah, so just to reiterate a little bit what the project is, just kind of working with elementary schoolers, kind of gauging where they are in their move-up process and where they're going to be in the next few months, and also working to pass on this excitement sense for learning as high schoolers coming in elementary schools and creating that student-to-student connection. On the middle school side, we're tackling this a little bit more from the Student Advisory Committee, which did a lot of work last year, specifically in the BAMS and Dummerston-Putney transition to the high school, working with discussion groups, talking with students, again, that student-to-student connection and really getting kids excited and ready for high school. So that, again, is a lot more aligned with the SAC's goals, whereas the specific sixth grade sending schools like Guilford, Academy, Green Street, and Oak Grove, directly to a different school for 7th and 8th grade, we'll be meeting with them in person. Yeah, Tim?
Tim?
Yeah, so I saw the minutes from your ACE meetings, and the breadth of topics is just amazing. I didn't really know what you're going to talk to eighth graders about, but can you just mention some of the topics, because you cover everything from sports to academics to... Yeah, so the SAC met during ACE today at the high school, just kind of getting, we have new officers just starting, and we're starting our new bigger projects for this year. Like Tim said, for our move-up process, last year we did discussions with students coming up from BAMS and Dummerston-Putney, and we had different discussion groups for a ton of different pieces of the high school. So one group was focused on student advocacy organizations, one was focused on different clubs students can join, one was focused on sports, one was focused on different academies, one was focused on our arts programs. Trying to get a big picture for students as they're coming to the high school so they know those different alleyways that might be interesting to them and they can ask those specific questions. Great job.
Yeah. That's all for now.
Thank you. We are up to public comment on non-agenda items. This is a time for the board to listen and to take notes. It is not a time for the board to respond to comments or to engage in dialogue with the public. If appropriate, the board and administration will work on next steps. So, any comments from the public? Yes, Martha, identify yourself and your town, please.
Martha Noyce, Brattleboro. I continue to just encourage everyone here and those listening in remotely to really pay attention to the budget items, the various lines, expenditures that can be tightened up, positions, and do your best to really make it a very presentable, in a positive, fiscally responsible way so that taxpayers can realize that you really are trying to create a budget that is lean and worthy of good students' success. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? From the public.
I know, but I'd like to make a comment that's not on the, for a non-agenda item 2 about a member of the public.
Okay, Nancy?
So I just want to say a very heartfelt thank you to Headwater Precision, which is located in West Chesterfield. They have recently sold their company and they donated to us over $30,000 worth of manufacturing materials, which will move our students forward in a very positive way. And I just want to very publicly thank them.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Any other comments?
In progress.
I would like to just jump in and reiterate something that Martha mentioned, and a reminder to everyone in the community that the finance meetings, which are Mondays and Martha attends, are open to the public. And we really do want public engagement, because the more eyes that are on the budget from a variety of stakeholders, the better. And I just wanted to say that, even if I am later criticized for speaking out of turn during public comment on non-agenda items, but I think that this is an important moment, so that it is tied to what Martha is saying, okay? Because we do want a lean budget. That is our responsibility. And we'll provide a little bit of an update later on in this meeting on the various subcommittees. Any other comments? All right, we are going to move on to the administrative report.
Okay, I'll start tonight with a resignation and a new hire, and then we'll move into our presentation that we have planned for tonight. So I'll start with a resignation. Aaron Walsh is putting in his resignation from Putney Central School. He's currently an academic support teacher in Putney.
So, is there a motion to accept Aaron Walsh's resignation from the Putney School?
Second.
Okay, all, discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Mark.
Okay, and we have a new hire to announce, and Aaron is not going very far. We're bringing Aaron Walsh forward as the candidate for the assistant principal at BAM's position.
Okay. I'm sorry, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? Tim?
Yeah, his resume and his documents were really so impressive. But what I really appreciated were the letters from our own Ruby McAdoo and John Sessions. If you haven't read those letters, read them, you'll be so impressed.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to say that as we bring this to a vote, Ruby McAdoo is not present this evening, because otherwise she would have to recuse herself. All those in favor of Aaron Walsh assuming this position at BAMS, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Well, congratulations, Aaron Walsh. I was chuckling with his resignation, and no one suggested that it was with regret, although I'm sure Putney feels regret about this shift. So, congratulations, Aaron Walsh.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I can't think of that.
So I'm gonna move us forward with our presentation for this evening with an introduction, and then I'm gonna turn things over to Bryn, Janet, and Stacy, and then we're gonna end with Hannah and Ben. So our presentation tonight is around our local common assessment plan related to MLSS and our assessment toolkit. Our assessment toolkit has been in place for about 2 decades now, and it's a living document that we every school year we work on in terms of making additions, making edits based on new information, new learning, new understanding. But it very much guides our local assessment plan. And it's certainly a resource that we're very proud of, that many people have participated in developing over the years. Many people currently in the system and many people who have moved on. So tonight's presentation, EQS standards that we'll be covering tonight, our tiered systems of support, and the development of local assessment, a common assessment program. The policies covered tonight, G1 curriculum development and coordination, G5 selection of instructional materials, F22 student assessment, and G7 educational support systems. So that's the intro. I'm gonna toss it over to Bryn here, to my right.
Thanks, Mark. I feel very old because many years ago I was a data coach in the district. Actually, I think helped develop the initial super old version of this. So thanks for that reminder, Mark. So we have a little bit of a joke in the curriculum and assessment office that when a question comes up and we're trying to figure it out, we're like, it's in the toolkit. We were talking about getting shirts maybe printed up as a joke. And recently, is it okay if I use this example? Stacy emailed me something. Where is it? I was like, Stacy, you know the answer. It's in the toolkit. So we'd like to give a little bit of an overview of our toolkit tonight and have a chance to drive around in there. I do want to let folks know that this is an internal WSESU document, so I presented that to the board today as a PDF document, so you can take a look at it and click on many of the links. Many of the support materials that are in that are internally used by our staff and our educators, and we have that within our shared drive structure, so that's why it's not linked directly in the agenda, so I just wanted to mention that here. Yeah, so we'll dive in. I think at the heart of what we're really trying to do and work toward is achieve a multi-layered systems of support. You might see that sometimes called a MTSS model or a multi-tiered system of support. We've adapted that here to be layers. Because in tiers, you're kind of thinking of like slices of the cake or tiers of the triangle where you can really take them apart and stack them. And we're thinking more about our assessment and our intervention systems as layers that we can layer on and then also layer off as needed. So apologies if you have heard me give these analogies before, but here's a graphic of our multi-layered systems of support. So if you can see the big kind of square, there's our layer one. It's universal instruction
Recording in progress.
that all students receive. It's grade level content. Sometimes it's adapted or differentiated, but that's something that everyone has access to. Sometimes we need an additional layer, and we call that layer two. And this is something we've really been working on of what can we do in the classroom, in the core classroom, that can provide either access or extension for the students who are there. So we're really thinking about enhancing access. It might be a different type of note catcher. It might be more advanced or challenging math problems in a skill set that's being worked on. Sometimes we need even additional layers. So our layer three is can be a push in the classroom or a pull out to work on some specific skills. And that's really just for some that need it. And then finally, we think about our real specialized instruction for few kids. Often, but not always, that might be students who have an individualized education plan where there's a really specialty instruction and educator to address those needs. So two analogies. The first one I'm pretty sure you've seen before. It's thinking of those layers like a fancy bed that you can kind of make and unmake as needed. So your layer one is your sheet. It's something that's there for everyone. It's there all year round. Whereas you might have a light blanket that you take on and off as needed a little bit. You might need the extra down comforter now that it's getting cold. You might need extra pillows, but thinking about layers that we can easily add and then take off to add to whatever our needs are for sleep. Kevin Drury, our secondary special ed coordinator, also gave this analogy, I think, recently, which resonated a little bit, which is thinking about the layers as a dental experience. So you have your layer one of like, you go for your cleaning every 6 months. Layer two might be the fluoride. It's not really that special, but it's an additional layer that you're there getting for protection. Layer 3 might be a cavity, or something special that you have to make the appointment for. And layer 4, we don't want to talk about that. So that's kind of the background and the premise of our multi-layered systems of support. And we really feel that to support our students, we have to respond to needs that are changing over time. And that change over time might be year to year, and it might even be week to week for some of our learners. And so thinking about a robust and adaptive system that can flex and support that system. And that's our local common assessment system. We are required to have a local common assessment system. And it provides clarity for all of us about checkpoints, timing, targets, and some universal guidance on where to start with next steps when that's needed. And we're really working on systemized supports. It's really helpful for school leaders and for staff and for new hires who come in, so that there's a kind of a universal system. It doesn't mean it's not adaptable. It doesn't mean it doesn't change school to school, culture to culture. But the foundation of our system ensures that we have these assessments and these supports, whether a student is at Dummerston or at Putney or at BAMS Middle School, they're having a same process, same assessment system, and same response to that information. So that's kind of the bedrock of our local common assessment system. I'll turn it over to Stacy, who's going to talk about some of the purposes and layers of assessments that we do.
So when you're thinking about types of assessments, we're just going to run through a couple just to give some definitions around different types of assessments. So first assessment is kind of that same analogy. It's a screening. It's something that all students receive. So thinking about, again, we're using a medical analogy here. So what's something you go to the doctor's office, maybe everyone gets their blood pressure taken. Some screening that gives us some information about all of our students and who has a need based on that initial screening result. And then from there, we would do an additional layer of assessment called the diagnostic assessment, which would really dig into what is the exact need that they might have. So the initial layer, we're giving an assessment to all students around math, and it's going to highlight some students who are showing some areas of need within math. And then that diagnostic assessment is really going to tell us what exactly is the need in related to math. What are the exact skills that they need to get some extra practice in? And so those two in our local common assessment plan really help drive what would the intervention look like and how are we going to monitor their progress over time. So those two pieces of that assessment. I'm falling behind, it's hard to do two things at once. And then within the classroom, we also have formative assessments, and we're shifting a little bit from our medical analogy here. Thinking about when we're in the classroom, what are students learning, what lessons we just taught in the classroom. And so thinking of this as a chef, so I'm taste testing as I'm going, making my meal. What are students doing? What might I need to think about differently for tomorrow's lesson, or if I'm making a big pot of soup, what kind of spices do I need to continue to add as I'm taste testing as I go? Which leads to the end of a unit of instruction, the summative assessment. So when it's all said and done, we give that assessment at the end. Are students making progress towards meeting grade level standards? And that's kind of those layers of assessment. And they all sort of paint a picture and help teachers just make decisions about what students need. And you see that those statistics at the bottom. Looking at data 20% and acting on that data 80% of the time. That's the goal. We have lots of data, and then how are we using that data to keep moving learning forward? That's kind of that piece.
And if I could add one thing, Stacey, I think I don't know what the analogy would be here, but there's also the piece of the anecdotal and kind of street data that everyone in our system gets day to day. I think Willow and Riley, you were talking about this a little bit in terms of focus groups and conversations with people. And so that's an inherent and natural process that of course guides teaching and instruction. And it's kind of maybe woven in, it's the broth of the soup, perhaps.
A lot of food.
Right.
Metaphors.
At dinner time, though.
Not
Yeah, cool.
And as Mark mentioned, he mentioned at the beginning about the education quality standards and our WSESD policies that pertain to this topic area, these state and local requirements. And so those policies are linked there specifically within the EQS, talking about the tiered system of support and also the development of and implementation of this local common assessment system. And then also the policies that are listed there, G1, G5, F22, and G7, just as a reference to how we're meeting the requirements that are laid out for our school system.
All right, so what we're going to do is split into groups and really dig into our curriculum and assessment toolkit. So we're gonna have us count off by fives, and each group, we're gonna have 4 and 5 kind of work together, so that'll be group 4, and then group 5 will go to tab 6 there. It's really bad instruction right here. So what we'll do is we'll give you time to get together with your group, and we're hoping that it'll have a mix of board members and other representation. And we have a note catcher for you to do as an individual, and then for each group we have one colored note catcher for you to kind of capture your ideas as a whole group, and we'll kind of report out the items on the colored paper after our 10 minutes of exploration time. Before we count off, are there questions? For now, just count off by 5 and we'll give you the right papers. Okay, so Anne, you can count first.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2,
3,
4,
5.
1, 2,
4.
5.
1,
2.
3.
All right, so I'm gonna hand the first 5 folks here their sections for their whole group. Anne, would you mind going into the glass room with the ones? And Janet will come around with the note catchers to the groups. Deborah, would you like to stay here with the 2s? You're gonna have to pass those out to your, where would you like to go?
I want to go in there.
You can duke that out. Sorry.
All right, we'll stay right here. We'll stay right here. Oh,
So Kim, if 3s could go in this corner.
okay.
4s will go there, and 5s will go over in this corner. So
Okay.
1,
So 2 is
2,
here.
3, 4, 5. And we'll come around with your sheets. Your 4s. This section has a lot of live links, but that means we can it's actually your summary for your group. Okay. You're the 5s. Definitely a 5.
I had to go in numerical order. I'm a 5, I think we're over here, right?
Right here. Yeah, good.
3 or 2s, yeah.
Are you a 4?
In play.
23, Nancy? 3.
So 5's your summary column, right? 2's are right. Are we awesome. And folks, I'm gonna set the timer for about 10 minutes. I'll check in with your groups at the 8-minute mark to see how we're doing.
How you doing?
Okay, so. We're going to move
So you each have a copy of, there should be enough there.
Oh, I'm supposed to give this out. No, that was my other stuff.
And there might be 2 copies
So it
stapled
is
together.
live and then I want to put in this right? You have to look through it, see what's in there. Independently, you can kind of take some notes on those 3 things on the white sheet. And then ideally, you guys can report out just the main 2 things of the white sheet. So in essence, you'll be teaching all of us what's in section 2.
Okay, so, that's right, because you are rising seniors, that's the report out.
All right.
Okay. He is a senior. Okay.
So you each have a copy, good.
I just.
Browse that section. You're the MLSS section, the absence is like a chunk of it. And be thinking about what's here on the white paper, kind of what's the gist, what's the summary, what's in this section. Was there anything interesting or unexpected you found, and is there maybe a question that's arising for you? And at the end, we hope that someone from your group will report out just the gist of the first 2 things. We'll collect the questions and respond in writing typically.
And FS, I'm sorry, functional skills. Technically, section 6 is
Right. Section.
So I wasn't clear on what is the actual question.
So we're looking at this section to be more and identify what is the gist of that section.
Getting a sense of like
What
this
is
section
interesting, like
is.
emergency file, urgency. Yeah. Kind of summarize it with the gist of the section.
Should we include all of these ones that you can see? Like, so there would be a page from that I would very helpful. But probably a lot of pages. So,
Yes.
so there's just a sampling of kindergarten, first grade, high school here.
So this is like demos for.
This is basically.
We actually have 2 sections in it.
In addition to like activities, efficiency-based grading for all the grades as well. This, I mean, used at least at the high school, it's a lot of people don't have the awareness that they use the system.
Right. So this is basically laying out like what assessments each grade level is required to give, right? So in this area, it's like, what are the main levels of those assessments, what are the story and what assessments does each?
So we're looking at a document that is a resource for teachers.
Correct.
So if I'm a teacher and I want to know what's supposed to be happening, I go to this. No matter what grade it's in.
Students and consider in direction. I know 504 is, I'm assuming IEPs is next. I'm on the bottom float chart. Where it says the bottom right hand corner, no progress to demonstrate reevaluate and adjust interventions at senior west.
Yeah, so we're
504
wondering
and their
if it's to
behavioral
give
must
the
be
idea of
considered.
that.
What is west?
A group of people who assess students academically and
In-house or out?
That's one area I don't necessarily feel with.
Yeah, I'll put it in the question section.
Chief resources.
Okay.
We see you have your hand up. One is plus.
Yeah.
At the very bottom. Those are these special. It's like list. Okay. Okay.
Try not to get your special ed version.
It's internal, I couldn't remember if it was internal or external.
Yeah, of course.
So internal.
Just to on your status.
So I just made it, I just zoomed
Oh, you
in.
made it big, okay.
Oh, yeah? What I have basically is the one-stop shop for all things accessible. It's like from organization about the various provision-based grading systems, user various grades. Each of the assessments. You don't have to go very far. You get a picture.
I'm assuming, yes, these are all live, okay. And are these ones as well? Okay.
A couple minutes left, and we have another 4 minutes. Do folks feel strongly about the gist / summary?
Have a conversation about this.
It's good.
It's better.
Well, we had said 8 minutes.
Oh, I'm so
to kind of
sorry. You would have
explain.
had it.
I don't, yeah, no, but that's great. I'll tell you what, do you think maybe 2 or 3 minutes to kind of talk about what you all think is the gist and something you found?
Get more chemical assessment. And then if you assess to see which kids have mastered what they haven't. So Riley went first.
I can go first. So, in terms of the gist, I'm kind of just gathering general core instruction policies, education for adults. I feel like that was pretty straightforward. Interesting, I didn't write by much, but I guess what I have a question about is the program structure of language comprehension writing. Is this, when it details the 3 units of performance tasks, is this for K through 8? Respectively, like
What did you have written in the box for gist?
I kind of just did it overall and showed the steps for
And we'll tell you about 2 or 3 minutes. And then talk about overall, be prepared to share what's the gist overall, like something interesting or unexpected or whatever.
I wrote
for intervention plans to support all students.
Yeah, our MLSS is the process to monitor and support all students with just the right amount of support.
And what I found kind of interesting is, these are a lot more steps than I would have thought. You know, I like how it's laid out, yes, except no, well, let's go this.
Can I try
We did this, but that, did it resolve, nope, let's do this, and then.
Once a month.
Here and such, in here, and we're probably measuring, whereas on this minute. So you often go back to here, to try something else before you go to, I don't know,
Mine were, well, it's had the last 2 years since I've been here. Screenshots of our Tuesday, and the other we update this says, like what grades we find out.
and we're just showing you just something louder. Okay.
That's not gonna be great.
Okay, so what's
Let's get about 1 minute. And you know who's gonna share after you too?
I see the curriculum.
Got it. Like on this one, you mean?
So are we okay that I'm taking this minute? Are you okay with that, what I said for the gist? Is that okay?
So no,
Yes.
you start reading it.
And then interesting or unexpected finding how and
Including as well.
Assessment strategies.
Yeah,
It's in the assessment section.
I mean, and just how it's broken out,
This is
you
the,
know,
We're gonna put it in about 1 minute.
Right now.
clear.
Are you recording?
But,
Probably right.
you know, as a parent with
Right.
a
the
student
question I
that
have
has
is,
dyslexia, especially when it's, you know, I didn't
how
quite realize how many,
to require or need proficiency-based
how many,
testing.
how many steps, because you just, as a parent, you don't recognize that, you just
In
need
high school,
to,
so it's grading,
you know,
but
specific
specific
to
on
child.
grading reporting.
and you don't realize the background
Proficiency-based.
Every
what they're doing, the intricacies of it.
That's important.
Yeah, every course has that.
Okay.
And we have a couple
And how is it
courses that I
determined?
like.
How's it determined?
The proficiencies
Whether proficiency
by the departments.
Well, and also by the IEPs, if the student has an IEP.
Well, we make accommodations, modifications based on needs of IEPs, but proficiencies don't change.
What students are going to encounter in all the different stages of their education at WSESD.
One thing
We're making like a public facing ones, not quite the same. There's so many places that are in protected drive, so how are we gonna like think about that, our units bombarded with shared science? I've made that mistake at conferences before, like, sure, I'll share with you until 10. I was bombarded with.
I know of the science page.
I mean, even just like without going into the basic assessment section, like ascertaining quickly like what it is that we're doing in order to
This is what we're working on.
Didn't specifically say age-appropriate sexual assault.
It's meant to be brain thinking.
Kind of one-stop shopping work.
Needs to happen at every
Show
progress.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, could you go someplace?
That's like.
Age-appropriate sexual assault prevention. So I'm assuming that that's in there.
All right, we're gonna please pull back together.
No problem.
Please know who your share out person is going to be.
I saw
You can go.
Should we go back to seats?
Are we moving back?
Yeah, let's go back to our original seats, because we'll flow from there. So we're going back to our original seats. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, guys.
So we're going to share out by toolkit section, and do keep your white paper if you would like. We know that we often run out of time to answer all the questions that people might have, so if you feel comfortable, we'll collect the white papers at the end and respond out in writing to the board with any questions that are there, and have that linked as well if that's helpful on the website. If you don't want us to collect your white paper, that's also fine. You could email me your question if you have it. So we're going to report out on the first 2 questions there, and in essence, each of our groups is going to be teaching the rest of us what they found in that section. So we'll start with group 1, which is kind of an overview of what the toolkit resource is.
So I'm going to be reporting. So for the overview, we said that it was well organized, it was concise, but there was a large breadth of information. And we also found that the navigation tips are inclusive and very helpful.
And was there something interesting or unexpected that you found in that section?
I kind of felt that the portrait of a graduate didn't necessarily fit with the rest of the information, in the sense that it was all like who's who and calendar dates and stuff and meetings and locations, and then portrait of a graduate, but as we discussed, keeping our eye on the prize kind of thing and our goals. So it's important, I think.
That's good feedback. Thank you, group 1. Group 2 was core instruction.
Yes, I have it right. So we felt like the gist or general summary of section 2 was that it was general core instruction qualities, ensuring equitable and equal education to all, regardless of anything like skin color, sexual orientation, gender identity, anything like that. And in terms of interesting or unexpected find, I thought it was personally pretty interesting that there was the program of studies detailing every course in the high school. That's pretty impressive. There's a lot of courses. As for a question, I guess we had 2. One of them was about STEM curriculums being underdeveloped. It seemed as though I think math and science curriculums were only defined for a few grades and are still in development. And then as well, tech for K through 8, or it was technology support for K through 8 was more, I think more defined than it was in a high school. And Ms. Parker had some questions about whether that was because students are more have a higher understanding of tech when they enter high school, or.
I think honest answer to that question is that initially the toolkit was looking at elementary assessment, and the initial audience was really kind of K6, K8. And it's just been the last couple of years that we've really had a focus on expanding that out also to the high school. And I think probably it's just not linked there yet. But it's definitely on focus for development, and that's good feedback, yeah.
Can I just add to that very precisely about math and science? The AOE is dropping the ball on proficiencies. And it just makes me very nervous about what we're saying about STEM and how important STEM is in the younger grades.
Yeah, the Agency of Education has been rolling out learning hierarchies and proficiency hierarchies kind of one subject at a time. And so it's really been like as it's been available, and then we've been adding those in. So hopefully it's coming. Thank you. All right, section 3 was multi-layered systems of support.
Yeah, I've got section 3. So the gist we saw in MLSS is as the process by which the district monitors and supports all students with just the right amount of support. And the interesting or unexpected finds, we had 3. How clear and how many steps are involved, how far we've progressed as a profession, and the amount of communication this must require to do effectively is tremendous.
Thank you. We had sections 4 and 5 come together, and I think Jessica was going to report out.
Yes. So we were looking at the sections on diversity, equity, and social justice, and social emotional learning and functional skills. And basically it was a collection of resources for teachers to go in and supplement learning for both sections. One thing that we noticed that could be added for the diversity and equity is the monthly focus that we're having is not included in here. So we thought that would be valuable to stick in that. But otherwise a good collection of resources.
Thank you. And group 6 was over here looking at assessment pages for kindergarten through, it's actually through 12th grade now, it's expanded.
Yeah, and our group determined the gist of this section to be a one-stop shop for all things assessment at WSESU. And so whether you're talking about providing access to information regarding our various proficiency-based grading systems at different schools and grade levels, to enumerating assessments at various grade levels, the timelines for those assessments, the cut scores for those assessments at every grade level. One of the things that kind of took me back was just by looking through these 6 or 7 pages, you got a really clear view of like what your student is going to be encountering in terms of assessments at every stage of their career here at WSESU, and I thought that was pretty impressive. Like you could set your watch by it because of some of the dates when, like the dates being like spelled out crystal clear as to when these assessments are happening at the different sites, but then also when the data is being pulled from those programs in order to start doing the decision making, which I think is helpful for the teachers, right? Yeah. The other interesting or unexpected find was the variety of assessments. Specifically, that panorama was included in that as well. And so, you know, at first glance, you would think that this would all be geared towards academics. However, you see panorama in there, which shows that we're trying to paint a more comprehensive picture of our students.
Well, thank you all for digging in and teaching each other about what was in there. It was much more exciting than us talking about it. So thanks for being willing to play along. The question did come up, I think, in this group about what about social studies. So we wanted to turn that over to Hannah and to Ben to talk a little bit about the further development of MLSS systems here in our 9th through 12th grade system.
And so starting last spring, we began our push towards increasing literacy at BUHS. And so just going back to what Stacy had talked about at the beginning of the presentation about the different types of assessments that we're giving our students, starting with screening, then moving into diagnostic. Generally speaking, until this year, we stopped at BUHS at the screening point. So we give universally all students take STAR in both mathematics and in reading. And that gives us a really clear view of where students are in terms of their academic scores related to the standards on which those tests are based. And so for reading, for example, like a student's score is going to reveal how well they understand the standards that are associated with high school English, but then also like whether they're comprehending what they're reading and like what their general reading ability is. But based off of the number you get from the STAR test, you're not going to be able to parse out whether that student is having difficulty with some of the standards related to English or if they're actually having difficulty with the active reading. And so up until this year, we kind of just pushed it to our English teachers, unless of course a student was on an IEP and those students had reading services that required them to be with a reading interventionist, which we have 2 of in the building, which kind of limited the amount of students that we're actually able to serve that that have problems associated with reading. And so this year what we're doing in cooperation with district and then curriculum and assessments is to create a flow chart in order to make sure that students are being identified if they actually do have a reading problem. And so moving from the STAR assessment, we are now giving any student who scores in the level 1, which I believe is in the lower 35th percentile. So any student with a level 1 is going to be taking an oral reading fluency test. So that's a minute timed reading passage test in order to see, okay, are we having troubles with fluency? If they don't hit the cut score for that test, then they're going to be given a spelling screener. If they don't hit the cut score for that test, they're going to be given a phonics screener. And the whole idea is to be able to drill down and to figure out where the deficit is so that we can start addressing it in a more systematic way. And so what does that look like this fall in terms of gearing up for the pilot of this program second semester? It means that I've been meeting, we have a committee of special educators and ASTs talking about how we're going to tackle this. Because right now the capacity lies with those 2 groups. And as we all know, based off of our testing data, there is a serious crisis with our students in special education right now in terms of this discrepancy between how they perform and how our students that don't have IEPs perform. And so throughout our committee meetings, 2 things have become really clear. One is we need to revamp what we're doing in special education classes, specifically our learning support classes, in order to make sure that we're grouping students appropriately with similar challenges so that it is it's a manageable task for the teacher of record to be able to move those students forward with their skills. The second part is like we need to be doing this with a research-based program. This can't be something that's cobbled together based off of teachers' intuitions or their experience in the field. Like there is the science of reading, which is a proven, as the name suggests, is a proven thing, right? And so for the last 6 weeks, me and the members of this committee have been going and previewing different structured literacy programs. And so we went down to training in Framingham State University in order to preview the SIPS curriculum. This past Friday, we, through the Stearns Center, attended a training for Just Words training. And both of these are going to be focusing on the layer 3 that Bryn was talking about in terms of creating interventions for those students that just are struggling with reading. And so where we are in terms of the committee work is right now we need to pick a program, which is going to be coming at the beginning of December, and then training up people who are going to be providing those interventions to those students. We're looking at groups of 10 or less for each of those intervention groups. And yeah, we're hoping to bring to BUHS what's been happening at many of our elementary schools in terms of just drilling down and making sure that we're not having students fall through the cracks because we're not acting on the data that we have in front of us.
I would add to that, I try not to talk about the COVID word anymore, but I think this is coming to play differently now because a lot of the students for whom these systems are being developed are actually the students who were in elementary school who missed a lot of early reading instruction. And it's difficult to fill those gaps along the way. So, kids who are now in 12th grade were in 6th grade in 2020, and on down with our middle and high school students. Is that right? Did I get that right? Yeah. So, the system, as we were talking about in the beginning, really needs to respond to the learners who are in front of us. Sometimes middle and high school teachers say, but I wasn't trained to teach kids how to read. I teach about English and the process of reading. But now we have some kids who still need to learn how to read, and so we're trying to be adaptive to meet those needs. Did you have a question?
First, thank you for your candor, your report. That was very encouraging. My question is, how do you reconcile the need to put special ed students in general ed classes and at the same time forming special groups with students?
Can you just talk a little louder? Sorry, can you just finish?
Did you get my question?
And so I think you're asking about like, how do you reconcile us utilizing a pull-out model when we've been so focused on the push-in model? Is that correct?
Right.
I think, as Bryn alluded to earlier, that it's a combination of both. Like, push-in is the ideal, right? But for certain students with certain needs, that's not necessarily going to work. And so, for instance, right now, if you have an English class with students who are actually struggling with the act of reading, they're going to have a really challenging time accessing that material if they don't have the basic foundational skills to actually read. And so being able to facilitate work around decoding and fluency is something that is going to require a pullout, because many of those other students are not going to be challenged by that work because they mastered those skills long ago.
And do your strategies to address the literacy problem include after-school programs?
Not currently. Right now we're looking at layer 3 and layer 4 on the MLSS tiers. And next year we're going to be looking at tier 1. So exactly what can be implemented across all of our classes, regardless of content area, in order to bolster literacy practices for all of our students. And so right now, because of the need that we're seeing in our data in terms of the discrepancy between students on IEPs versus those who aren't on IEPs, we're attacking this from the bottom up. So working our way from the most restrictive interventions to the universal layer.
And I would also add that we are doing universal training for all staff on literacy practices that are valuable across content areas. So that is also in the works to access some of that layer 1 instruction.
Yeah, and sorry for not being more clear about that. And so as a staff, we've done many PDs this fall focused on that very thing in terms of like, how can we leverage vocabulary? How can we really focus our questioning in order to get more out of our students in order for them to, cover that universal layer?
And in addition to those things that we've already mentioned, these are some of the other layers of support that we provide students. So we have differentiation within the classroom. Some students have their educators who support them. We have academic support teachers who push into classes. We have special educators who both push in and pull out. We have counselors and social workers who can work with our students. We have behavioral systems and check-in, check-out systems for students who need them. We have success plans, we have educational support plans, EST plans, and we have IEP and 504 plans. So these are a lot of layers that we provide to make sure every student has what they need to be successful. So at the break, we'll collect your white sheets if you would like us to respond to specific questions on your sheets. We've gone a little over time, I apologize. Are there any other general questions in the room? We might have a minute or so for those.
think we started at 20 after, so we're did pretty
We
good.
did well.
Yeah.
I have a question. So many of the programs are mandated by the AOE. And yet, what we're looking at in the high school is not.
It actually is.
It is.
It is, okay.
Yes, there was some clarity around the wording that they came out with last spring, and they require students who are significantly below grade level, which that part is not clearly defined, but we have identified that as students scoring at the level 1 on STAR are required to receive targeted intervention in literacy.
I think maybe what I was referring to is some of the interventions that, Ben, you're talking about going for training and sort of assessing. Are those programs coming from the AOE?
No, well, vicariously. And so the AOE has released a list of vetted literacy programs that they rate based on how well they target things like comprehension, fluency, decoding. And so SIPs and Just Words, those 2 trainings that I talked about, were included on that list. There's 1 or 2 more that we'd like to look at before making a decision on which program to go with. And there is also the idea that possibly, since we're piloting this second semester, if there isn't a clear one, that we go ahead with 2 and then we analyze the results of each one in order to, for next year, to pick one to go with. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the frustrations that myself and the rest of my committee is having is the fact that the AOE is pushing out guidance for this, like as we're developing the program. And so, we have the first meeting with all the people that I think would be eligible for running a supplemental reading program, and try to get everyone excited, try to capture the spirit of the moment, and then not even 2 days later, AOE pushes out guidance saying that, at the high school level, you need to either have this endorsement, or this endorsement if you want to be running a supplemental reading program. And so it ended up thinning the group by 1/3. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I figured there were some tensions in the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would add to that too. My experience is that the AOE and the EQS are mandating that we have coordinated curricula across our schools and systems. In fact, we had to take a survey last week, and it was asking, in your district, does every teacher in your school teach the same math program? And then does every school in your district teach the same math program, for example? And so it was, I think we're a little bit ahead of the game in terms of the work that we've done over the past several years, and having a coordinated curricular program for both literacy and math in our K-8 system, and then also links to coordinated curricula for social studies and science that you saw linked in the toolkit. Typically, the AOE gives a recommendation of what things you need to include, and then actually doesn't say which program to use, or might give a menu of programs that you could explore and take a look at. And so we really vet our programs based on the research and evidence-based practices that are aligned for literacy with the science of reading, and for mathematics with current research and what we really feel is best for learners. And then we look at the data and we see how we're doing, and we do that kind of continuous improvement cycle.
Other questions? I'm looking online as well. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, this was, again, comprehensive. Thank you. And the material that you sent us with the ability to go through this, this body of work is amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you'll find errors, so let us know. When you find a broken link, it's definitely a homegrown work in progress. So let us know, we're always open to feedback.
Deborah has a collection of red pens.
Oh, as you well know, yes. I'll lend them out. Okay, use them carefully. Anything else from the administrative report?
That'll cover it for today.
All right, well, I think we are right on target. So it's 7:06. we are going to take a 10-minute stretch break and come back as we begin that. Is there a fiscal report this evening? Are you aware?
Frank's not joining us tonight, but I can just give a summary of
Okay.
where
all
we
right.
are in the process.
So we'll begin with that in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Returned from our break, and we are ready to have a brief fiscal report.
Yeah, so I'll just give a budget process update. We've been meeting, Frank and myself and Jody Nutting have been meeting with school principals the past 3 weeks in reviewing first draft of the budget. The focus, the most recent focus has been on the elementary schools. So last week we conducted a series of meetings with all of our elementary school leaders. We're taking the same approach we took last year and we have in the past. We're focusing on resources needed to meet our goals. And while also understanding that efficiency is needed and where there are areas we can cut back, we're making those recommendations to do those. So that's how last year we presented a budget with a reduction of 10 staff members. So we're kind of taking the same approach this year. So no details really to share quite yet. I will share that in the middle of the week, last week, the initial review was over 4% increase. We worked throughout the week individually with principals and got that down to 3.2% at the elementary level. But it's still a work in progress. Myself, Frank, Bryn, and Stacy will be meeting with all of the elementary principals as a core group tomorrow. So a lot of individual work, but also group work. So we can look at how to be as efficient as possible in terms of shared resources as well. And now we are shifting the focus to more concentrated meetings with Nancy Weiss, Hannah Parker, Keith Lyman. We had a series of meetings today as a group and then with individual principals. So I think things are looking promising. Knock on wood, we don't really know all of the information yet until the state releases their weighted numbers for students. So as Frank referenced last night, the December 16th meeting, we will likely have everything in place and a true first draft of the entire school district in terms of where we are in relation to inflation in the economy in terms of a percent increase. So that's what's happening. It will continue to happen throughout the end of November and through the beginning of December. But again, that's the 16th. We should have a much clearer picture. Those weighted numbers are due to us by December 1st. We know in years past, there's been delay on the release of that information from the state. So fingers crossed we get that as soon as we can so that we're preparing in real time and not having to do what we did 2 years ago, which was kind of a Hail Mary approach in 2 weeks before town meeting.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I feel really good about the team, the work that is being done, the conversations that are being had. All of our leaders understand, where we are and how expensive it is to live and how strained people are. At the same time, we're also leading into the science of reading science-based programs to get the biggest bang for our buck. So we're evaluating that at the same time as we develop our first draft. So
And
that's
as
the
we-
general update.
And as we know, everything increases in cost
Yep.
from year to year.
Yep.
So I say to myself, a 4% increase, wow, that's fabulous. And then to whittle it down to a 3.2%, wow. That was tough.
Yep.
And tough for your principals.
Yeah.
To squeeze their resources just a little more tightly.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, the 10 individuals from last year, that was through attrition, wasn't it? Yes, okay. I just wanted to confirm that publicly. Liz has her hand, well, let me just ask, board members, questions? All right, Liz, if you unmute yourself.
Yeah, do you have a handle on how much health insurance costs are going up for the coming year? Because that's been a real tough on our budgets.
Yeah, I think Frank is going to review that with the SU board tomorrow night.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, okay, thank you very much, Mark.
Welcome.
We're going to move on to the board matters. Leadership Council updates. Jessica.
Okay. Reporting from the Academy Leadership Council met on Thursday the 13th, and we talked more about their attendance goal and how they've worked towards that, and they're continuing to see good numbers. And we talked about how it was something pretty remarkable from the summit, how much they've improved with their attendance and tardy numbers over the last year. And then they also wanted to highlight their outdoor learning space has been kind of growing and getting more students involved with the core value of the student-centered decision-making, being able to kind of go outside and choose activities in the woods. And the kindergarten there is really getting the opportunity to like run and jump and move around in the woods that they didn't have before. And their cooking and gardening program has been really exciting, with kids cutting up vegetables and things that they've grown, and really building kind of those fine motor skills that they didn't have that opportunity to before.
Okay, thank you. Academy School. Tim, do you have your hand up?
Yeah. So BAM's Leadership Council met on November 5th. It was quite a meeting. Principal Lyman had a videotape of a large bear that was actually spotted at the school. Not only at the school, it was on the roof, and it attempted to juggle. That bear was actually Principal Lyman, who was juggling in a bear's outfit because the students who were just going crazy watching him met their reading goal for September. So that was a good thing. And then we also talked about board reports. This is the second time there's been a request to ease the burden of administration, just to drop the questions in the board reports about leadership councils. Most leadership councils don't use that space, so maybe the board would like to discuss it sometime when we talk about board reports, but use them or not. But there's a request that we just drop them.
We're talking about the monthly reports, is that correct?
Yeah, the monthly board reports.
Okay.
Third, the parents again asked for some easier manner of communicating to board members. They don't know our names. They don't know really how to write an email to the board. So I think the Communications Council and the Goals Committee is addressing this. Right, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. Finally, we had an interesting discussion about AI. Using AI You know, I'm sure you know this, you can scribble notes and just submit it to AI and it turns it into a beautiful set of minutes. So we were talking about our note taker at BAM's LC's, just using AI. It's free, easy to use, saves people a little time. That's all.
Okay, all right. AI makes me very nervous. Colleen,
Green Street had our leadership council meeting yesterday. A lot of the same things were shared. We were talking about attendance and what we're doing to improve attendance, and it's going up and getting better. We did talk about the board reports, but we said that we liked them, and they wanted to know where those questions go and how we get them, and who gets them. And I told them that we get a board report from Mark every month, and all the information is right there, so we gets directly communicated with the school board, and they've been utilizing that more often, understanding that, I think. So, and we're looking at making improvements to the playground. So that was a big topic of conversation.
Cool.
Doing school playground tours. Like, I want to do that. That sounds great. So that's all.
thank you. Matt?
Oak Grove met last week and spent a large portion of time talking about attendance, but their particular focus was on family outreach and the just the sheer massive number of events geared toward community and families, and getting them in to Oak Grove was just incredibly impressive. So yeah, it was a really great meeting.
Good, thank you. All right, Ann?
The Career Center Regional Advisory Board met on the 7th, which it was heavily attended, which is an improvement in my opinion. We had a very robust discussion, particularly about the skills that our local business people, the soft skills that they find our students lacking, and we talked about ways to address it. Things as simple as writing a check, returning an email. And I gotta tell you, it sounds like Nancy was perfectly well aware of it, and she is very much on it. And our local business community thinks that this is a really great space, and they're very interested in working with our students to help them develop careers in the trades.
Wow.
Did I leave anything out?
I think so. We had a request from BMH to give them a list of our students who might not be going to college because they are interested in hiring and desperate for people in certain departments, and it's not just nursing and medical careers, it's all kinds of things. And so I said, I'm not sure we can exactly give you a list, but you can come in and meet everybody if you'd like to.
That's great.
That sounds great. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Putney was rescheduled from last week, and we will be meeting this Thursday.
Okay.
And Guilford will be meeting Monday, 12:10 in the afternoon. We're gonna try in daytime meeting, see if we can get more participation.
Great. All right. All right, so we are moving on to board subcommittees and SU update. Kim?
The finance committee met. Mark obviously gave a very detailed report on what we did with the fiscal report. Just wanted to let everybody know that the report is online, so you're able to access it. And there were Fred presented just graphs and things for people to see how the budget is being spent at each school by percentages. So it's a very easy way to look at it and to see where the money is going for each school. So I highly recommend people going online and pulling those up if they have not seen them. And then next Monday, please join us. We will be going over the high school, middle school budgets. So.
Okay. And if you go online, you can see that we meet in the central office at 5 p.m. Okay, and those meetings are recorded, so if by chance you were unable to tune in to the elementary school meeting yesterday having to do with budget, there is a recording. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Ann.
Personnel Committee met last week, and we finished up the last batch of 1% requests for this academic year. They are, as usual, interesting and creative, and I'd really like to compliment staff on the number of them that they managed to link to goals from the CIP. I was really, really pleased to see that, and keep them coming. We'll be back in the spring to approve a big pile of them then.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Jessica?
It's not technically a subcommittee, but our board goals task force met. I don't think we're on here.
Okay,
So, is now the time?
sure.
Okay, so we met today and just to check in on where we're at with goals, and we are in pretty good shape. Most of the goals and the action items from the goals have been divvied out to different committees, with the major communication goal being with the communications committee, and we'll talk more about that when we go over this survey. So we met about that, and then the other two goals that we're working towards, our goals around HHB, which we've been making progress on with the different action items that we've laid out earlier in the year, and then the DQS, EQS is the other one. I do believe I owe an updated catalog of training materials for DQS and EQS, so that is on me. I dropped the ball on that, but I will get that going, and I'll send that out as soon as I have it.
All right. Anything else having to do with board subcommittees? Tim?
Isn't there an SU update?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, I thought they said, okay. Sorry.
Anything else for board subcommittees? Policy is meeting tomorrow at 2:15 tomorrow, which is, I think, a little off of our schedule because the second and the fourth Wednesdays of the month, we are pushing into a break, the final week in November, which is lovely. And so we are meeting tomorrow, and in December, we will be back to the second and the fourth Wednesday of the month at 2 o'clock. All right, SU update?
The SU began its fiscal process, same as y'all did at your last meeting, as we did in the last meeting. We had further discussions about superintendent evaluation. Superintendent's evaluation, all of the forms have been returned this year, and we will be meeting to work on the final report for Mark. And if anybody. Yeah. And our current meetings until December will be budget meetings primarily.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, so moving on. Communications Council. And there are two items there. One is budget development, outreach, and community engagement. And I believe the budget development outreach we saw when we were at our last meeting at Putney Central. And one was, am I correct? One was a listing of dates having to do with finance committee meetings and budget approval process, which is going to be sent out. It's already been sent out as of November 11 as a press release, as well as a sort of a cartoon characters setting up the dates. So both of those went out. And then we have another report having to do with community engagement. And I don't know whether everyone has had a chance to look at that. It's planned for board goal around community engagement. The Communications Council has been focusing on the board goal that includes creating listening sessions, community engagement events. We would like to have a focused conversation about these, so we're presenting this information and presented this preliminarily on November 4 with the intention of having a more detailed discussion on November 18. Our thinking, first bullet, was that a survey would be a good starting point, and we could use a survey as a tool for sharing information and drawing people to attend other listening sessions. The rough plan for a meeting schedule would be, number one, the survey, with the goal of having feedback collected by the end of the year, question mark. Zoom session January or February, number one with staff before or as part of professional development day. It cannot be part of a professional development day. Those are packed days and already planned out for the full year, if not for next year as well. And number two, staff later in the spring, students in the spring, community in the spring. The goal of tonight's conversation will be to gauge how we feel about each proposed step and whether we should move forward with this plan. This is a bit of a temperature check before we go fully into planning mode. I know that was it the last meeting, I suggested that the listening session be tied to a community forum having to do with Act 73 in order to make the best use of community outpouring of individuals with real concern about the numbers of people who will show up. And at this point, I'm not sure where we stand on a community forum right now having to do with Act 73, based upon changes that have taken place. And we will get to that. So, I'm sort of working on this community engagement. Ruby is not with us this evening. And just want to get a sense of where we stand with this and how we feel about it. Brian.
Yes, thank you. I've been thinking about this and I'm concerned about, concerned is kind of a strong word, I guess. I want to make sure that we know why we're having these listening sessions, because if I think about this as in my role as a citizen in this community, I'm not sure I would be compelled to come if I didn't know what was going to be the purpose of it. So if it were specifically about Act 73, I might come. If it were specifically about some other issue in the school system, I might come. But to just have a listening session, I'm not sure how that would be different than if I would just come to a board meeting. So I want us to be careful about, not careful, I want us to be sure about why we are offering this.
Tim?
I appreciate what Brian is saying. I agree with it partly. But I'm recalling when I campaigned for this lovely spot on the school board, I went knocked on doors and knocked on hundreds of doors, and people had a lot to say about everything concerning education in our district. And I wouldn't want it so restricted that people didn't feel comfortable in going beyond the set agenda and bringing forth any any issue that was on their mind. Part of the purpose of having a listening session would be, what are the issues that concern you? So I understand the draw factor, but also I wouldn't want to restrict it.
I think there's a big difference between knocking on someone's door and saying, come out on an evening.
No, the point is that people have thoughts about.
I was not contradicting that at all, but it's how to elicit those thoughts. And there is a big difference, as I was saying, between knocking on a door and asking someone to come out at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. Brian, did you want to add to that?
Just as you were saying that, Tim, it occurred to me, there could be a time, even if there's a very specific topic, there could be a time for public comments like we have anyway, to catch those people. But, anyway.
Jessica.
Just to speak to that a little bit, because I'm on the communications council and we were talking about exactly what you're saying, Brian, like we want to have a purpose for these. And I think really how we landed and the reason why it's laid out in this way is we were going to use this survey as kind of a how are we doing with communication, and there's open places on the survey, and we were hoping that some things would come to light that may be important. I think while at first I wanted them to be separate from the Act 73, I think having like a big thing that's happening as the initial draw, but also having time for open comment that may not have to do exactly with Act 73 or whatever the issue is, will be part of it. And I don't recall if I added these after we presented it last time or not, but there are questions at the end of the survey about when would you be most likely to come to a listening session. And I think the purpose of having it separate from a board meeting is to kind of take the big formality about it. Board meetings are long and drawn out, and we are very mindful of time, and we limit people to what they are not allowed to say, but the time limit. And I think this would be a little more open, is my vision of it. I don't want to speak for the council completely, but that is kind of my takeaway from the conversations that we had, is what it would be.
It might be that we want to consider a board meeting in a different context. And so far, nobody's been limited in terms of the amount of time that they're speaking. And by all means, if there were, okay, maybe we should, I'm wondering with a survey, how much information we can draw from the survey that would take the place of listening sessions, and to gauge morale from a survey where people can fill it out at will, and we can remind the community to fill it out, extend a deadline, let's say, and see where we stand with that. Should we take a look at the survey? Let's take a look at the survey. And and because surveys are so specific, it might be helpful if we could look at it online. And is there any way of projecting this to the community at large?
If someone shares their screen on Zoom.
Hold on.
Okay.
Just hold.
Is that working now?
Okay.
Is that sharing?
It is shared.
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, okay. So the first question is, what is your role within the WSESD? If you have multiple roles, please complete the survey for each role that you play. Staff, student, family, caregiver, community member, taxpayer. And then you skip to, okay. Next one, grade level. You might want to, so that we can critique this, you might want to include pre-K, because that's another category for us at this point. And I presume kindergarten is considered elementary? Yes, okay. How well, so, yes, Brian, good.
Question, this is, as this is, are we saying this would go out to everybody and everybody would just fill out the parts that are relevant to them? Is that the intention?
Yeah, the way that it's built, it will, so if you select that you're a teacher, it'll take you on the teacher track of the survey. So it'll just take you through those questions, and the other questions will not be shown
Okay.
to a teacher.
So if I'm just a community member, I won't see this grade level,
Right, you would
even though it
skip
says
to,
it's mandatory to.
yeah,
complete.
it's just the way that are you looking at a PDF, or are you looking at the form as Matt has it? So this is just the way it's built. The PDF that was linked in the agenda is a little clearer. It's meant to be taken online, and this is kind of the full form. It wouldn't look this way to someone taking it. This is just how it was created, if that makes sense.
So when I look at the first one where it says staff, and then it says skip to question 10, but staff could have children in the school system.
Right, that's why it says if, for example, if you're a teacher and a caregiver to a student, complete the survey for each role that you play. So you would submit.
Did I not read the question?
It's in number 1.
Okay. I don't know, that might have to be a little clearer. Yes.
First, I want to thank Jessica for stepping forward and creating this, crafting this. But any good survey, we know you have to pilot it. There's an exercise called cognitive feedback where you talk about each item. To do that now, to do a pilot, to go through each item thoroughly would take over an hour.
Got it, yeah.
My suggestion at the goals meeting today was that Jessica formed a small group of pilot people from student, board member, staff member, to go through item by item.
Exactly what we're doing right now. In effect, what I'm beginning to do right now. Thank you so much. I think that's really appropriate. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we are gonna put this on hold for the moment, okay? And thank you, because this is comprehensive and represents detailed work. So let's pull together a small group. Okay, that's great. All right.
And then I have a question.
Yes, Tim, thank you very much for that suggestion, because I wasn't quite sure how to manage this
I'm
evening.
full of good suggestions.
I can't hear you.
He said he's full of good suggestions.
Yes, you are.
At the SU meeting, there was mention of a survey, and we talked about, is that going to overlap with this? Would staff get the survey that you mentioned at the SU at the same time that this is coming out? How do those coordinate?
I think, yeah, since it's only in its very nascent stages, I can't answer when it will be released. But I wouldn't want it to conflict with this. This seems like a separate thing. The questions that I want to ask the teachers are about the school district, the operations, the things that are specific to their roles as teachers and how it all fits together. So I think this is a different set of questions.
So the one that you mentioned at the SU, is the SU handling that, or is it administration, or?
The SU will be handling that.
Okay, thanks.
So as I look at this survey, Tim, this one is really about relationship with the board.
Yeah.
The one that we're talking about right now, coming from the Communications Council, which is very different.
Well, it also talks about leadership.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Jessica, thank you very much. Thank you.
So
All right.
I'm okay I can get together a small group of folks to just.
To do a pilot on it and just make sure that and I would see, I mean, there are many ways of doing it. One is for people individually to do it, and the other is for people to sit together and just brainstorm what's working and what's not working for them. Okay. We are going to move on at this point. I think the listening sessions are sort of on hold at this point for further consideration. Yes.
Just noting Liz Adams has her hand up.
Oh, Liz, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Liz.
How are you going to select community members? Who is the survey going to go to? Because you have a category of community member, so that wouldn't be a teacher, or wouldn't be a parent with kids in the school system.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up for consideration at this point. Just how the outreach would be to get this survey out to everybody, every citizen. Don't know how it would, how that would take place right now. So I think that's a great question. And I'm sort of speaking for the committee right now.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it is like the most heavily scientific survey. You know, we're gonna like cast a wide net and who responds, and with that in mind, you know, it's folks that what we're hoping to find is how can we better have a two-way communication with all of the different groups that are being surveyed. And so I think the dissemination plan is still a little TBD at this time. But I have some ideas and we'll work with trying to get it out as wide as we can.
I think it's a great benchmark for the board, right, in terms of reaching out to stakeholders. Yeah. Okay. I am going to move on then. Legislative update?
Okay, I'd like to rename this session Jocelyn and Tim's Legislative Minute.
I'm sorry, legislative what?
Legislative Minute.
Minute?
Minute.
Minute.
All right,
Yes.
your time down.
6 minutes,
Okay.
60 seconds. Here it goes.
Over the past several weeks, Jocelyn and I have continued to engage with the Act 73 Redistricting Commission and Task Force. And so now we want to provide an update on where the policy conversation is moving and what it means for our district. On November 10th, I joined roughly 30 Vermonters in testifying in support of a BOCES-style regional cooperative educational services model. 5 shared service administrative regions that preserve local districts, elected boards, and voter self-governance, while reducing costs through collaboration. Since then, both Jocelyn and I have offered testimony specifically urging that final decision-making on school closures remain with local voters, not centralized authority. I should mention too, while we have our student reps here, that they mentioned how there's very few students weighing in on this, and they hope that students will voice their opinions too.
The public response has been decisive. Over 5,000 Vermonters submitted comments opposing forced mergers, compared to approximately 5 in support. Vermonters overwhelmingly favor community-centered schools and democratic governance, not top-down mandates that risk unintended harm. At the same hearing, Secretary Saunders suggested, without data, that a cooperative model would increase bureaucracy rather than reduce it. Commission members did not accept that claim at face value. After reviewing testimony, fiscal analysis, historical data, and national research, the Commission concluded that forced mergers do not reliably lower costs, do not improve outcomes, and are not supported by evidence. Several members publicly shifted their positions after reviewing the facts as an example of responsible, evidence-based policymaking.
And this aligns directly with the work of Vermont Superintendent and UVM doctoral researcher Ryan Harity, who has emphasized that district consolidation distracts from the real crisis, the collapse of Vermont's teacher pipeline. Vermont issued over 800 emergency or provisional licenses this year, the highest ever, while fewer than 250 teacher candidates graduate annually. Research is unequivocal. Teacher quality, not district size, is the strongest driver of student achievement. Policies that risk school closures, reduce staff positions, and destabilize educator pensions, which is what you would get if you have fewer teachers. The pension pool is lower. Just worsens that crisis.
Those comments come, there's a opinion piece by Ryan in today's Reformer that's comprehensive about Act 73.
And so there's an alternative path taking shape, voluntary shared services. This approach is already authorized under Act 168 from 2024, and 7 supervisory unions plus our own district have begun using it. Early results across the state are showing real cost savings, especially in special education, without eliminating school choice or local governance. Vermont is already demonstrating that collaboration, not consolidation, works.
And we need to mention here that just last night at the Finance Committee meeting, there was mention that our own supervisory unions' experience in implementing BOSIS has had less than ideal results, even though it's been successful in New York and maybe 30 other states.
And so the Act 73 task force will release its final report on December 1st, and current drafts indicate a statewide transition toward regional cooperative services with projected cost savings within 2 years. This mirrors successful models used across the U.S. in over 30 states and aligns with Act 73's original intent to reduce spending without damaging communities, democratic engagement, or access to quality education.
So what remains at stake is real. Consolidation could shift decision-making authority away from local voters and put schools like Putney Central, Dummerston, Guilford, and Oak Grove at elevated risk of closure. However, recent developments indicate growing bipartisan consensus that shared services, rather than forced mergers, best meets Vermont's values, fiscal needs, and educational mission.
And so we encourage the board and community to stay informed, stay engaged, and continue advocating for solutions that reduce costs while strengthening, not dismantling, Vermont's public school communities, even though there is tons and tons of information flowing constantly.
So a quick summary of key recommendations. Number 1, voluntary mergers incentivized. The plan strongly emphasizes voluntary district mergers rather than forced consolidation. Incentives to merge include access to state construction aid. So if 2 schools wanted to merge, they didn't have a big enough building for it, the state would kick in construction costs perhaps.
Another key recommendation would be creation of cooperative education service areas. The proposal would set up 5 regional CESAs, cooperative education service areas, a new layer of shared service agencies.
And 3, Hannah, you'll be interested to know, regional comprehensive high schools. The plan supports developing regional high schools so that districts can pool students, which could improve educational offerings and efficiency. by coordinating on high schools regionally, districts could reduce redundancy, broaden curriculum, and make better use of facilities.
So is this a consideration of larger high schools?
Yes.
Well, they were talking about like voluntary mergers of the
Yes,
different
okay. This is
supervisory
voluntary.
unions.
This-
Yeah,
this is
however
voluntary.
people choose
Okay.
to go forward.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Larger always makes me very nervous. Okay,
Which is why they're recommending voluntary as
Mhm.
opposed to forced.
Right. okay.
They don't feel that there's enough evidence that there'll really be cost savings with forced mergers.
Okay. I hope you don't take offense that I interrupted, but there's a lot coming at us, and I think it would be probably appropriate to ask questions along the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Just 2
Tim,
minutes.
I'm not stopping you.
Okay, go ahead.
Another key recommendation was respect for local control. Even with these regional structures, local decision-making is preserved, participation is voluntary, and there's no forced redrawing of district lines under this proposal. The plan also seeks to maintain local elementary schools and minimize disruption to students.
And in the morning session, it's important to note too that if schools merged, the state would allow those merged districts to create their own articles of agreement. Those articles would not be taken away. And number 5, the last one, long-term 10-year framework. The proposal is structured as a 10-year roadmap rather than an immediate overhaul. I know 10 years sounds like a long time, but this timeline gives districts time to consider mergers, build consensus, and plan for regional high schools. The RSCA is proposing a 2-year period where you see, let's look at the benefits of BOCES and then move on from that 2-year period. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. I do want to say that students have chimed in, having on Act 73, and Willow talked to the legislature, was it last year? And certainly students in the SAC drafted a statement. So I think that we are talking to the choir, to the converted. And I do want to thank the students who are present right now for their advocacy. And the advocacy is not over, and I know students will stay very attentive to this because this is what this is their world and their future, and the future that they leave behind for the next generation. So I know that thinking about Willow's comments about his experience at Guilford Central and how critical that was, and I will not forget that, and I'm sure that the individuals who heard him will not forget it. That was a day when students were presenting, it seems to me. Yes. So great work, students.
Just one more note. The last public session for the commission is November 20th. And at that time, the RSCA and others are planning to simply thank the commission for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that's it for the legislative update. Thank you. Thank you to the Communications Council for your hard work in drafting all of these wonderful possibilities before us, and thank you to Jocelyn and to Tim for keeping us on target with this. I did have, I wanted to, did you want to make a comment? No, okay, all right. I did want to make a comment at the beginning on a very, very different note. I had suggested a while ago when we were at Guilford that we refrain from sending emails to administrators and others on their downtime, their holidays, their weekends, that we use the send, that we do scheduled send. I did want to put out a qualifier because something came up, and it was a moment in the Chairs Forum that I participate in every 4 to 6 weeks. And that we as board members tend to do our work in the evenings and on weekends. So many of us are working, we're raising families, and that's when we can carve out time. So I know very carefully at Guilford, I said administrators and directors. I did not include board members in that. And I hope it's okay if I send emails and requests for agenda items, sort of with an odd deadline. I'm saying this because I did get a critique about it, and I just wanted to say, with your permission, board members, I'm gonna send emails. Right, okay, thank you. All right. Consent agenda, I think that's what we're moving towards. Is there, okay, we pulled out November 13, so that's okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for November 4?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. And now to readoption. The Policy and Amendment Committee presents for readoption, and this means action is required for F5, searches, seizures, and interrogation of students by law enforcement personnel or other non-school personnel. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Regarding the policy and amendment for a second reading, I would like to delay F43, gender freedom in schools. That policy, I would like to return to the policy committee based upon, okay. What I am saying that in presenting for a second reading, F43, gender freedom in schools, which is a potentially new policy, so I want everybody to hear this. We are returning that to the policy committee for review based upon an email that we received that offers a lot of really cogent suggestions, and it warrants just tightening up the language in that policy. I think everybody saw that email that came round. And so I am pulling that out of this section. So therefore, Policy and Amendment Committee presents for a second reading D15, travel reimbursement, and G17, proficiency-based grade requirements. That's going for a second reading, which means when we come together on December 10, if there is no further discussion about those two, those will go for readoption. Thank you very much. Is there any further business before this board this evening?
Madam Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Is there?
Second.
There's a second. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. This evening, we are adjourned at 8:11 tonight.